All right, a Friday edition of Mr. Irrelevant, live from downtown Madison. I'm Alex Strouf with you. Excited for this one. I don't know where the hell we're going to go. We're going to go all over the place. Joining us in studio, I'm not going to kiss her ass any further than
You don't
this,
have to do that, Alex.
He's the greatest sports radio host of all time. You hear him on Mad Dog Sports Radio, named after him, and you see him on ESPN's First Take. It's Chris Mad Dog Russo.
Alex, nice to see you. How you doing?
Good to
be
you,
here.
Chris. How were travels?
Travels were good. You know, you got here on a Thursday. You haven't seen Colin since August. You know, you see him on the FaceTime, but to see him in real thing, you get a chance to hang out with him a little bit. He's a big sports fan, so we can hang out with the Wisconsin-Tennessee game. We got the football. You know, it's funny. I came here 2 years ago. It's the same Northwestern team. So I'm going to see Northwestern for 2 years in a row. But, you know, I've been here 4 or 5 times, and not much to like as far as Madison, Wisconsin is concerned.
Yeah, no, not much to like or not much to dislike?
Not much to dislike. There we go. Let me do that.
You're going to make everybody hate you.
I can't do that before we ever chatted. Yeah, 100%.
Well, you walk in, Chris, with your wife and obviously your son Colin, who we work closely with, been on the podcast many times. You're holding court, telling stories about him. Is there anything you didn't say out there that you would like to tell the audience about your son, Colin Russo?
You know, I have 4 kids, and he's the closest in personality to me, where he, you know, chip off the old block, as you said. If he gets going and he gets upset, he sounds like me. So he's picked up a lot of my little idiosyncrasies, which the other 3 don't, but he has. And, you know, I'm proud of him. I mean, let's face it. I mean, he's a college kid. He walks over, he goes to work, he runs the board. You know, he gives up a lot of his weekends to do the pre and the post. You did a great job with him last year. Don't think I don't know that.
Appreciate that.
So from that standpoint, you know, I mean, I didn't do that necessarily when I was a senior in college. I mean, I basically was a college kid. So I give him credit that he's done it. And the other thing I like about it is he has not, at least from what I can gather, he hasn't used the Russo name. You know, he came here, nobody kind of picked up on. He's telling us that he's Mad Dog's kid. So I like that too. Let him develop his own niche. Let him develop his own career, and independent of me. And it sounds like, for the most part, with here, he's done that.
He's crushing it. You're absolutely right about that. So I want to dive into you a little bit. But number one, I grew up in Green Bay. That's my background. Huge Packers fan. You have this wild fascination with the 1960s Packers, Vince Lombardi. Bob Skoronski is a name you bring up a lot.
Bob Skoronski.
Why do you bring up Bob Skoronski?
Well, he went to Fairfield Prep in Connecticut.
Okay, that's why.
So he's and Skoronski's still alive. He just passed
away in 2018.
Yeah, he just passed away. Yeah, I did. A great left tackle who obviously, you know, sprung Donnie Anderson free on that block in the 67 Ice Bowl. Yeah, I mean, I love those Packers in the 60s. Remember, I was a huge Packer fan as a kid, and I remember that 67 Ice Bowl. I was 8, and I remember that game very, very well, and I loved Green Bay, 66, 67, all the way into the early 80s, and for whatever the reason, I lost contact. But as a kid, the Packers and Giants in baseball were my 2 favorite teams. That's where the Green Bay fascination comes from.
So do you have a fandom like in football still, or you
not as much as I used to? And the same thing with the baseball Giants, who won 3 championships, and I got bored. So not as
you
much.
Got bored of winning?
Yeah, 3. I won 3. I got bored. It was the striving to get the title that really fueled me more so than actually achieving it after the first couple of times. But I used to love the Packers. I've seen all the great film. I mean, I've read all the Lombardi books. You know, I know all about Lambeau and, the 40s Packers, the 30s Packers, the team that Lombardi took over, 110-1. I mean, I can go on and on. I had the Lombardi's kid on a million times. I mean, the Lombardi Packers are fascinating. And remember, he's from Brooklyn, coached the Giants. I have Dave Robinson on. I haven't had Kramer on recently, but I've always had a fascination with the Packers. And that's where Colin picks some of that stuff up. Well, he's got good history, and so that's good to see.
You both have a ridiculous memory. Specifically, you're like I said, you were out here holding court, rattling off scores from 20 years ago. How does your memory work like that?
Yeah, God gave
my memory sucks.
Yeah, God gave it to me. Bottom line. I mean, I was an only child as a kid, so I almost like I needed a brother, and sports was my brother. So I remember specific instances as a young kid, 67, 68, 69. I can remember watching the Ice Bowl. I can remember all the baseball, the 69 Mets, and that went a long way. If you have those memory scenarios, that helps you as a sports talk show host because people like history, and I'm good with the history. And I think it's rubbed off a little bit on Colin. I think he has an appreciation of it that a lot of people don't have. The young sportscaster doesn't know that much prior to, say, 2010. Mm-hmm. Colin does. He's heard of Bob Gibson. He knows who Willie Mays is. He knows as you said, he knows the Ice Bowl. He's heard of Red Grange. And I think that adds depth to a good host. I really do. He's got some of that.
But I've noticed with you, specifically on First Take, right? I think it's very, national service level, but then they bring you in and you're rattling off references from the 60s and the 70s. Why was First Take something you wanted to do when you picked that up about a year ago?
Well, I was fortunate. Stephen A. is the one I have credit for. Remember, Stephen A. grew up in Hollis, Queens. He's about 8-9 years younger than me, and he was a big Mike and the Mad Dog fan. So when he was graduating high school, starting college, he listened to me and Mike. The Knicks were good. Riley, he's a big basketball fan. Mm-hmm. So he's always had a fascination with how me and Mike did the radio. And we kept in touch, sporadically, but he called me a couple of years ago, says, why don't you come down here and do a little something on Clemens and Bonds not getting into the Hall of Fame again, which is a couple of years ago. So I came in, I did 2 segments on a Wednesday in January, and in 2 days, by Friday, ESPN signed me up for a year.
Really?
40 episodes for a year. This is 2 years ago. So we did 20 minutes together. By Thursday and Friday, he signed me up. So, I go in there Wednesdays. It's a good day to do it because it's right in between. It's not a review week or a preview week, so he could use some help. And my job when I go in there with him for 2 hours Wednesdays is take a little pressure off him. When you're doing 10 hours of TV a week on sports and he's got rotating hosts, mm-hmm. he needs guys in there to take a little pressure off him. And he knows when I go in there, I can take some pressure off him because I can carry certain segments. And that's got a lot to do with the relationship. And we have a good, he's a great presenter. He's a great entertainer. And I can provide that historical nonsense that he likes to make fun of. And then I do what I'm mad about and all those kinds of things. That adds an element to it too. So, I texted him today because I saw him on the screen at my hotel here. I said, "Boy, you're everywhere." I know what makes him tick. He knows what makes me tick, and he appreciates the independence. He's independent. He doesn't care what people think, mm-hmm. and he appreciates that I have the same thing. So it's been a renaissance in my career. I'm 64 years old, and all of a sudden I got Stephen A. and First Take. That gives me a new platform for the younger generation who's never heard of me. Because then I listen to the radio or Mike and the Mad Dog, and now they have a feeling who I am. So I've been lucky, very fortunate.
No doubt. And I want to ask you about Fat Rob and the edibles a little bit. But you bring up the Mad Dog Mad About segment, and Craig Counsell was it this week. Obviously, that's the big talk here in Wisconsin. What's your take on Craig Counsell going to the rival and taking another man's job?
Well, to me, it's more about the Cubs. I can't blame Counsell for accepting $40 million. To me, it's more about the Cubs. Boy, you fired David Ross just like that. He's done a good job. And you bring Counsell in. The issue with Counsell is the geography. Don't make it sound like you're going to go home every night for supper when you're in Chicago, which is a long commute. I've done it 1,000 times. So from that standpoint, it's a little dubious on his part. I'm a little down on the Milwaukee owner because when he was asked if you ever matched the $40 million, he didn't even give you an answer. And he lives in L.A. 99% of the time anyway. So this idea, how could you leave this great Milwaukee community, is a little shaky. So I'm down on him too. And then I'm down on the Mets because, Stearns fired Buck. He didn't even do it face to face. He had Epler do it. Buck basically announced his own firing. And I don't care how much they can't stand Buck. He's just a pain in the neck. He's a good manager. Manager of the year 4 times. And you bring Carlos Mendoza in, who has never managed a day in his life, who is a Yankee bench coach for Boone, and the Yankees are coming off an 82 and 80 season, who can't beat Houston. So we're down on that too. So in other words, on First Take, I had Counsell getting $40 million, making double Bochy, and he's lost 11 of his last 13 playoff games. Think about that. I got Milwaukee, who's making it sound like, how could you ever leave the Brewers? You're not the LA Dodgers, okay? So that's number 2. I got Ross being fired unceremoniously, and the Cubs giving him $40 million. And then I got Stearns not even getting Counsell to manage, firing freaking Buck to bring Mendoza in, who's never managed a game in his life. I mean, remember, Met managers, that's a hard job. Second-class citizen in New York. The last 2 they had no experience. Callaway was a disaster. Rojas was a disaster. And now they bring Mendoza in, who's never managed a game in his life. So everything worked out perfectly, and I gave me 5 minutes to kill him on First Take. So there you go.
So you're pissed at everybody in the MLB.
It worked well. And remember, Stephen A. loves the Yankees, and he respects the money. So from that standpoint, he got a kick out of it too. And I wanted to get baseball in there. They don't do a lot of baseball. No. So if I can put the First Take baseball in that little What I'm Mad About segment, I at least add a baseball segment to the show. which is what I want to do.
And obviously, of your show on MLB Network, I'm curious, what's your relationship like with the commissioner, Rob Manfred?
Good, very good. I'll give you a good thing on Manfred. Okay, this is a good one.
He's not my favorite, so please give me anything good.
I'll give you a couple good ones. I'll give you two good ones. When I did the big thing about I'll retire if the Diamondbacks win, okay,
which you didn't do, by the way.
Which I didn't, but people gave me some grief on that, which rightfully so. But I was not going to the World Series because I was not in the budget for the World Series, for MLB Network. Because when I go to the World Series, I got to bring a radio station out there. It's a major pain in the neck. I did that on a Monday, Tuesday when they beat Philly. Wednesday, MLB Network, the baseball calls me, Chris, you got to get to the World Series. So I said, listen, I can't get to Dallas in 36 hours. I'll go to the games in Phoenix. So I go to the games in Phoenix, and I know the baseball guys pretty well. So Pat Courtney, Rob's right hand man, it says, no, I'll bring the radio out there, Pat. And, if you want to get me Manfred, we'll get you Manfred. Don't worry. So I go out there. I didn't want to drive Pat crazy. I didn't even ask him. Pat calls up my producer, and he says, what day you want Manfred? I said, you pick the day. He says, we'll pick the day. I was out in the center field bleachers with fans, and Manfred walked all the way out there to do a half hour.
Wow.
So he didn't do it on the phone. He didn't do it on a headset from the field. And I mean walk. He had to walk through all the fans, center field, an hour and a half before the game. And he gave me 20 minutes.
Wow.
So I give him and he's always done that for me. Manfred's a good guy. I know that he's a lawyer, so he doesn't maybe come across great publicly. He took some hits for the scenario with the Astros, with the sign stealing. And, he's done some things that, from a PR standpoint, get him in a little trouble. But he saved the season 2 years ago with the lockout
He did.
because the union was never going to agree to that. And he got him to agree. He gave him service time at the end. He did a good job with the rules. I don't think anybody's going to dispute that with the rules, with the pitch clock and everything else. So I think overall he's a little misrepresented. Again, sometimes he doesn't, and he left Oakland, which bothered people. But he's a good guy. So there's a little something on Manfred. He gave me something that was interesting. He gave me 2 or 3 things. This was a week ago. He gave me 2 or 3 things because I've been screaming about reseeding because they should reseed after the wild card round, and he always doesn't want to do it. But he said to me the other day, he said, one thing I have to agree with you on, the Braves beat the Phillies by 14 games over 6 months. Their first playoff series was the Phillies. They got to beat them again. Something's wrong with that. So I got the idea that they finally will change the reseed because Arizona should have played the Braves.
You should take credit for that.
And the Phillies should have played the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Because Arizona was the worst seed. They should have played the best seed, and Philadelphia should have played LA. So maybe they'll change that. And I think he wants to figure out a way to get the starting pitcher to pitch longer in these games. He doesn't like the bullpen games because it's not entertaining.
No, it's not.
And baseball got killed with the ratings, which also bothers him.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
But it bothers you, too, because you're a baseball purist.
It bothers me, too. They hit something that's funny. The Miami-Kansas City game?
Yeah.
In Germany?
Yeah, 8:30 a.m. kickoff central.
9:30 here. I did $9.5 million. The only game that did better in the World Series than that was Game 5.
Wow.
So, in other words, a game that started at 6:30 on the West Coast.
Is doing
now,
better.
It's a good game. It's Mahomes.
Sure.
It's a good game.
But it's 6:30 in the morning. And it's Game 5 of the World Series.
And on the MLB Network. I'm sorry, on the NFL Network.
Right.
That game was not on over the air. That was an NFL Network game. That was not a CBS or an NBC game.
Right.
That was Eisen. So that tells you that baseball, listen, nationally they have problems with ratings. You know that better than anybody.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
So tell me about Colin. Give me a little something. Yeah, you work with him.
Yeah.
You're the one who made his transition good. I give you tremendous credit for that.
Thank you for saying
because
that.
you're a guy who's an aspiring and good talk show host. You got a young kid coming in here. You knew who he was. If he didn't tell you who he was,
You didn't tell me.
and
Never used that.
you got to let him shine a little bit, but also teach him a little something about radio. That is not that easy.
No.
Plus, he's 19 years old. Who wants to work? Or 20, whatever he was.
Whatever it is.
And you're 20. How old are you? 25.
I'm 24. Yeah.
That's not easy to do that.
But I was young when I caught my break too, right? So I feel for it. He's nuts, but so am I a little bit. So I think,
that's what sells. Personality
I
sells.
think we get along in that regard. I love that he's not shy to talk about going out and doing dumb stuff, right? So we just talked about line dancing. We talked about it on the podcast.
Makes him enduring.
Yeah.
Makes him enduring to the audience.
Do you know how to line dance?
I do not, and I wouldn't, but he did tell me about
if
that.
Colin invited you out to line dance?
I probably would to make him happy.
Okay. Can you stay till Tuesday so we can do this together? Let's extend the trip a couple days.
It's funny with him. I try when I'm with him. The other kids that have a different kind of personality, I don't want to overwhelm him because I want him have his, and he's got the same kind of personality as I
Oh,
do.
yeah.
So you got to make sure he has a chance to shine. But that's what's good about him. He's not afraid to make fun of himself.
No, he's not.
And fans like that.
And he told me a story last week on Mr. Relevant. You can find that if you're listening to the pod. He got a call from one of his buddies a couple weeks ago. They were up in La Crosse, which is about 2.5 hours from here, in jail. And Colin's like, "What the hell are you doing in jail? I'm not coming to pick you up. Figure it out on your own." He hung up on him. 2 in the morning.
Wow, I did not know that story.
We'll have to ask him about it at lunch. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
how about that?
Yeah.
He did not tell me. Doesn't tell me everything.
No,
But
no.
that's when he did not tell me.
That's
that.
when he let fly, and I thought I defended him. I think that's a good call. Let your buddy rot in jail.
Yeah, exactly right. He didn't run to him and everything else. You know, he went to, he was in Europe, as you know.
Yeah.
And he was in Barcelona.
You gonna tell me he got arrested?
No. He was with his friend who was bombed, who banged his head
Oh, jeez.
against the counter at 3:00 in the morning. And he had to hang out with a friend in a Spanish hospital for 6 or 7 hours when he got
God.
stitches and concussed and everything else, not knowing the language that great. Did he tell you that story?
No, he didn't. That's
He
wild.
went there for a week by himself, Barcelona, and he went to Nadal's hometown. I
Yeah.
forget what it's called, the
Yeah.
island there. So he likes to travel, does a good job.
No kidding. Well, he's from Connecticut out here in Madison.
And he can
He's doing a
take
good job.
gummies too. He takes gummies once in a while. too.
So
Has he told you that?
yes, he has. We may have done it together once.
Oh,
or
well,
twice.
good for you. Good for you.
So tell me, you're not a big drinker,
Not really, no.
but you do like the gummies.
Well, remember, Alex. You want me to call you Alex or Strouf?
Either or.
I went to a boarding school in upstate New York, 140 kids, 80 guys, 50 girls. My father went there.
Okay.
Darrow School. I got there in summer of 74. In the summer of 74, Nixon resigned and Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young did the first ever stadium tour across America.
Yeah.
That's how long ago that was. Okay. I went to Darrow. Darrow.
I just don't know where the hell this is going.
Darrow's it's about 30 miles east of Albany. You mean to tell me in that environment as a kid in boarding school, I'm not going to get high once in a while?
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, I can remember.
So this has been a lifelong thing.
Oh, God, yeah. I know I got off it and everything else. But, I mean, you're talking, mid-70s. That's not too far from the 60s. In Darrow School in Lebanon, New
Is
York.
that how you met? And correct me if I'm wrong here. So Fat Rob is your bookie or co
He's my friend. He's a former priest.
Well,
Priest in the
he worked
Vatican.
in Vatican City.
5 years.
And now he does what?
He runs a restaurant and a tour organization out of Rapid City, South Dakota, because he married his wife, who he married. He left the priesthood, met a woman, married her. She has a child, and lives in Rapid City, South Dakota.
So he goes from Vatican City being a priest.
Rode 5 years.
So you call him Fat Rob or Father Rob?
I used to call him Father Rob. Now I call him Fat Rob from Rapid because people get a kick out of that.
Is
Look
he
at
fat?
No, he's chubby.
Okay.
But
But you call him Fat Rob.
yeah, I call him Fat Rob. And I tell you, ESPN loves that stuff. It make him a character.
Yeah.
You make him a character.
And you've done a good job with it.
And Rob and Colin knows him well too. Anyway, to make a long story short, mid-70s, Darrow School in Lebanon, New York. I'm 16 years old, 1975. That's 25. That's 50 years ago, just about. I mean, geez, you don't think I'm going to get high once in a while? That's not too far from Woodstock, for crying out loud, in 69.
Go to Woodstock?
I wish I had. I was 10.
Oh, you were a little young.
I was a little young. I did not. But I love that kind of music. Has he told you about Laurel Canyon?
No. Tell me about Laurel Canyon.
You know, did you see the Epics documentary on Laurel Canyon?
I have not.
Oh, it's great. Anybody see it? Two parts. Came out 3 years ago. Each part's an hour and 15 minutes. It's all about the music scene in Laurel Canyon from 1965 to 1975. That is the Byrds, Joni Mitchell, the Doors,
Sure.
Crosby, Stills, and
Wow.
Nash, the Eagles in that period, and about how they all congregated at Laurel Canyon. It is a tremendous. You'd like it. He's seen it. It's a great
Was
documentary.
this made prior to Glenn Fry's passing?
No, he had passed away already.
Okay, gotcha.
But it has Don Henley in there, Crosby in there, McGuinn in there. Everybody, obviously Morrison. He's got well, Morrison had died, of course, but I mean, it has all the stuff in there, great footage, and that is my music. I
And
love
you're a
that
big music fan. I saw a video a couple months ago. You play guitar?
No, I didn't, but I screwed around at the Bar A.
Yeah.
He was at that. I can't play the guitar properly.
So what the hell were you doing on stage with the guitar?
Because we had a band there to do the shows who the Eddie Testa band, which is
Okay.
a famous South Jersey band. So they played the day we did the radio show, and they played during breaks. So I went up there and I sang a song.
What'd you sing?
We're having a party. The Southside Johnny song.
Good choice.
I'll tell you a great spot I did a couple years ago. This is one of my favorites. I did an hour with Roger McGuinn.
Okay.
You know Roger McGuinn, Found the Birds, Turn, Turn, Turn.
Uh-huh.
He did the show from his house in Orlando in a chair like this with a camera, and he played 6 or 7 songs.
Wow.
As good a show as ever done. In February of 2021.
Okay. So that was
Excellent show.
probably one of your first things out of the pandemic.
Yeah, well, we're still kind of in it, but he told me all sorts of great. Oh, he was great. And that's he
Phenomenal.
Found the Birds, which is, that great band that Crosby was in. So I love the Laurel Canyon. You'd enjoy that. It's a 2-part thing. The first part ends with Woodstock, and the second part ends with the Eagle. Linda Ronstadt's in there. If you like that kind of music, you'd enjoy it.
So let's get you out of here on this. Your relationship with athletes is so fascinating to me. Joey Votto.
Yeah, very fascinating. Amazing.
Do you like when you're interviewing somebody and they bring kind of a character
Oh,
or an
absolutely.
angle?
Absolutely. No, I didn't know Votto was going to do that.
He went off on you.
He did, and he practiced it forever. I picked up on it a question or two in that this was going to be a gag. If you react badly when he blows you off the first 10 seconds, that interview doesn't work.
No.
So I have to play along, hoping that this is going to end well. And it did, because he did a great job. We got a lot of juice out of it. Votto's got personality. If you saw, you didn't see it probably. That was a Wednesday. Friday, the Reds were in L.A., and he did the pregame with Reds TV. And he explained on the Reds pregame show, Reds Dodgers, how he set the whole thing up.
Oh, really?
It's very, very good. He did a good job. Yeah, he's a good guy. The baseball player doesn't always love me. Some get it, some don't.
That's right.
I'll tell you who did a great job was Lovello,
Okay.
the manager of the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
Oh, he texted me. He gave me my 15 minutes of fame. He was really good about it. So, you think maybe the Diamondbacks get ticked off because you said they had no chance in Philly, which I really did mean. And he handled it well. Some don't, some do. You can't, Alex, if you're in this business long enough, stay true to yourself. If they don't like it, you can't worry about
That's
it.
fair.
As long as the fans like it.
And you didn't retire, which I appreciate.
Right, I didn't. Did anybody believe that I was going to retire at the Diamondbacks beat the Phillies?
Well,
I mean,
I
I
here's
can't
the
believe
thing,
people
Chris.
bought into that.
You got to do your research a little bit better. Every team ever that has beaten the Brewers in the playoffs either goes on to be in the World Series or win the World Series. And that streak was not ending this year.
That's interesting. Cardinals, Dodgers,
Everyone ever.
Diamondbacks. That's a true thing.
It
Huh?
dates back to 1982 when they lost in the World Series.
So every time they haven't made it a ton of times, but when they do
They
make
have
it,
the last decade or so.
yeah, they've been pretty
back.
good.
Yeah.
They've been pretty good.
Well,
That
now
was
council's gone, so I think the
Well,
ride's over.
hopefully they hire Mattingly. That was a very bad loss to Arizona.
Horrible.
Horrible. They
Putting
can't
Jesse Winker in the game for the first time. Anyway, don't even get me started on it.
Good
Don't even
job.
get me
So
started
that
on
game had those 2 games got a little juice. Well, I appreciate you taking care of Colin. That's the
it.
problem.
And I appreciate you doing this, and we'll go lunch and give Colin some more help.
You got it.
Appreciate you. Chris Mad Dog Russo with us. Thanks again to Chris Mad Dog Russo for joining us today on Mr. Relevant. What a wild conversation that was. He is the best. That conversation, as always, here on Mr. Relevant, brought to you by my friends at Door County Distillery, locally produced, handcrafted, and award-winning spirits made in beautiful Door County. They've got everything you could need, the cherry brandy to elevate your old fashions. They've got gin. They've got award-winning whiskeys. Anything you want with the holidays coming up, elevate your tailgate, elevate your holiday gathering. With Door County Distillery, check out their website, doorcountydistillery.com. To find the retailer nearest you and a huge list of unique cocktail recipes, again, that website, doorcountydistillery.com. All right, a few thoughts to send you into the weekend on number 1, Packers in Pittsburgh, 3-5, 5-3. Jordan Love, I've been saying this for weeks, but it is such a prove-it game for him consistently. And I talked about it on Wednesday's show prior to chatting with Jen Latta. I just hate that Mark Murphy continues to set the expectations. He wrote his Murphy Takes 5 column, I believe it was earlier this week, saying, yeah, my comments in the offseason probably weren't right. He's going to need a few more weeks. Number 1, Mark Murphy needs to stop setting the expectation. But now we're at a weird point, which I talked about prior to last weekend's game. If the Packers win a couple more games, draft position suffers, you're probably stuck with Love for another year, but you would love to know the answer right now. I think against a good Pittsburgh defense on the road, this will be a game that truly tells us what Jordan Love is made of, and his offense is healthy outside of, obviously, David Bakhtiari. So I'm incredibly intrigued to see what Jordan Love does against a solid Pittsburgh defense. He tore up the Rams last week, 20 for 26, had a solid game, played very well. But I think truly in this Pittsburgh environment, a place the Packers haven't won at in a long time, is going to be a really big test for him. I'm all in on college hoops. We know this. Badgers host Tennessee tonight. You might be listening to this after the fact. Number 9 team in the country. A good test, a good gauge of where the Badgers are at here early in the season prior to that really tough early December schedule where they play, at least as of now, prior to the next AP poll coming out. But Michigan State losing earlier this week to James Madison, who was unranked, the number 4 team in the country, Michigan State. They've got a nice stretch of games at home against Marquette, at Michigan State, at Arizona. 3 games in a row early December. Tonight is a very big gauge for the Wisconsin basketball team. As for Wisconsin football, 9.5-point favorites against Northwestern at Camp Randall Stadium tomorrow. I'll be with you reacting to the game, filling in for Colin Russo. We'll be hanging out with his parents on the ESPN Wisconsin College Game Day post-game show, 94.5 ESPN Milwaukee, 100.5 ESPN Madison. Make sure you tune in following Wisconsin football. Hopefully a win and hopefully extending that bowl eligibility streak, the 3rd longest in the country, of the win over Northwestern tomorrow. Exciting week coming up next week. Plenty to react to on Monday. Super Bowl champion, multiple-time Super Bowl champion, should have been Super Bowl MVP, James White, former Wisconsin running back, will join us on Wednesday's show of next week as we've got plenty to react to and plenty to catch up with James White, which we will do next week. A big thanks to Ryan Wollersheim again running the show today, and another thank you to Chris Mad Dog Russo. He was a mad dog today, talking all things baseball and 60s Packers and smoking weed. I loved it. It was a really fun conversation, so I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you haven't already, make sure if you're watching live, go subscribe to the podcast feed wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of the in-betweens, or make sure you catch us live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 12:15 on ESPN Madison Social Network, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That'll do it for us this week. We'll talk to you again Monday following Packers Steelers on Sunday. This has been Mr.